Dong! Where is my automobile?
Automobile?
Ah, yes, the 1980s. Who could forget that glorious, debauched decade? It was absolutely something that we'll never, ever get again. But somebody who might disagree with me on this fact is Molly Ringwald. Why? Because she has the worst take I could ever not want to believe. But unfortunately, it's 2024 and past glorious pin-up celebrities like her. Now, come on, give me a chance. We can't all rail on Miss Ringwald. I mean, she had some beauty and gravitas to her. But unfortunately now, folks, things are kind of getting a little more wokey-dokey, and I want to get into this. So without further ado, folks, let's bring on the memories of the 1980s.
Well, so what do you want to do?
I want to take you out to dinner. And then I want to go back to my apartment and watch Kung Fu. Do you ever watch Kung Fu?
I love Kung Fu.
Get together, get set, let's go! We're wide awake.
The name's Nukem. Duke Nukem. No, I'm not here to kick ass or chew bubblegum. I'm not here to get even with those alien bastards for shooting up my ride either. I'm here to tell you to watch Jason King on Kung Fu Hot Dog. So watch out for him and his babes of the 1980s. Oh, and one more thing. Hail to the king, baby.
So from bounding into comics, get ready for this. Now, a few weeks ago, I made a video about Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter is Dead, which is getting a full black remake, which I think has already been released. And if it has, well, no one really is talking about it. Molly Ringwald says any potential remake of The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, which will now be called Pretty in Black, if you get my drift, or 16 Candles would have to be more diverse, because those movies are really, really very white. What she's doing here is shitting on the legacy of the late, great John Hughes. John Hughes, for me, who made the most perfect film ever, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I mean, just look at that. That will tell you everything you need to know. Why do I call it the most perfect film ever made? Well, because every single frame is not wasted. Every line, every funny moment is all catered for. It's just a perfect movie with a great soundtrack and a very engaging performance from Mr. Matthew Broderick. Of course, Mia Sara as Sloane Peterson is an added bonus, and Alan Ruck as well as the insufferable best friend of Ferris is just, it's just oh goodness, all wrapped in one in 80s cling film. It's wonderful. But Molly Ringwald, now let's not forget, she was kind of epitomizing and giving people with red hair a bit of hope that they weren't excluded from society. She was that pin-up girl that some people I knew had her in their bedroom walls. Why not? Molly Ringwald, over the course of time, transformed into a very good-looking woman. I can't say the same thing for her today, because if these are recent pictures to behold, she's certainly gone down the plastic surgery route. In the opinion of 80s cinema icon Ringwald, should Hollywood ever wish to remake those movies, it's to represent every teenager in school in America today. But don't forget, when these films came out in the 80s, it was representing teenagers all over the world. And it had nothing to do with diversity or representation or being included. It's such a nonsensical thing. And actually, when you think about it, American schools have always been diverse in their classrooms anyway. So are British schools too. Ringwald weighed in on the prospect of possibly remaking the trio of John Hughes directed movies, teenage coming of age films, while speaking with, oh no, here we go, Clayton Davis from Variety. Oh, this guy, God, yeah. He's a real showstopper. He really is. Following her reception of the publication's Creative Vanguard Award at the 2024 Miami Film Festival. Per a clip of her appearance provided a variety at one point during her time on stage, the actress was asked for her thoughts on remaking any of the above films. Clayton Davis, he is just an absolute moron. I made a video about him a couple of years ago where again he was defending, I forgot what it was he was defending. I think it was Rachel Zegler or West Side Story, I think it was. And it was just so hilarious. The guy just sits there and virtue signals for diversity, for inclusion, because basically he's been taking too many of those DEI pills and swallowing them and not shitting them out fast enough.
Thus far. First of all, Elizabeth, it is not a bad movie in the slightest. I think it's one of Marvel's best efforts thus far. Has great action. It focuses a lot on story. It's diverse, it has great characters.
Oh yeah, of course.
I think
Bring
this
that
leads
in.
to a larger problem that is in the industry. Anytime a woman takes on the action genre, which has been typically made for men to helm, people come harder on that filmmaker when she takes it on. I think it's the issue that needs to be addressed because it is
Absolute bollocks. What are you talking about?
I agree with you 100%.
Oh, of
right?
course you do,
When we started
Elizabeth.
talking
Yes.
about this, I said, imagine that. The film that is directed by a woman has the lowest score on Rotten Tomatoes. Not warranted.
Because does he really believe in what he's speaking the truth? I don't think he does. I think he's just being held hostage by Variety and saying, if you don't preach these things, we're going to make sure you're homeless and we can join the other vagabonds on the dirty streets of LA. I don't want to play this, but let's go ahead. Let's see what Clayton Davis, Mr. Soy Boy himself, has to say to Molly Ringwald.
Those movies, the movies I'm so well known for, they were very much of a time, you know? And if you were to remake that now, I think it would have to be much more diverse, and it would have to be, you couldn't make a movie that white. Now, those movies are really, really very white.
The stunned silence from the audience will say it all.
And they don't really represent, what it is to be a teenager in a school in America today, I don't think.
Well, what's so funny is that back in the day when these teenagers were portrayed by actors older than 18, they weren't really teenagers, were they? They were just young-looking actors and actresses like Judd Nelson, one of the GOATs, who just happened to have that nice appearance where you could believe, you could buy into their appearances that they had that teenage quality about them.
So, but I think that they were really great, and they were of that time, and they really represented John Hughes' experience. And that's what he was writing to his own personal.
So what she's saying is, what the insufferable Miss Ringwald is saying is, get some more black directors, and you want to get an ensemble cast of different diversities and sexualities. And basically, if you've ever watched 16 Candles, I'm pretty sure there was a scene where the Asian kid is getting rogered by a white chick on a swing. It was something really funny like that. I need to go back and watch that movie. Obviously, Weird Science, The Breakfast Club, which had a pretty interesting upskirt moment of its time. But of course, Molly Ringwald will probably say, well, we can't have those images in today's climate. It has to be a bit more, I don't know. I mean, what she's basically saying here is that Hollywood can't seem to make an original idea of its own anymore. That's why I love films of the 80s, because they were just churning out so many good things back in the day. You were literally sport for choice. It was great. And then, of course, some things get thrown by the wayside and you don't discover them until many, many years later. I think one of the films I can remember was Terminal Velocity. No, that's Charlie Sheen. It was something that had terminal in the title. I've got to remember what it is. And that's an okay movie. It wasn't the greatest thing ever. But honestly, if she's talking like this, she is literally shitting on the legacy of John Hughes, because she has to correct herself. Yeah, they were too white, but hey, do you know what? They're still great films of the time. There is no such thing as a modern audience. Every audience in every decade is the audience of that time. Don't forget, the previous generation from the 70s or the 60s are also part of the makeup of the new audience growing up in the 80s. That's how it works. This is not the first time the Riverdale actress has spoken to the lack of superficial diversity in her Hughes-helmed filmography. Don't forget, it was John Hughes who made her a star. Because back in the day, you wouldn't see many red-headed actresses headlining a movie, and John Hughes kind of broke that mold. That's Molly Ringwald. I'm not thinking about John Hughes right now, but yes, you brought up his movies. But of the films that he left behind, she wrote in a 2018 reflection on the film pen for the New Yorker, films that I am proud of in so many ways. Films like that, like this earlier writing, though to a much lesser extent, could also be considered racist. Really, Molly, wow. Misogynistic, why? And at times homophobic. Well, of course, that's of the time. And again, I've got no problem with homophobic jibes in 80s movies. It was of the era, it was the flavor at the time. The words, which I can't mention on YouTube because they will definitely limit the monetization on the video, are tossed around with abandon. The character of Long Duck Dong in 16 Candles is a grotesque stereotype, as other writers have detailed far more eloquently than I could. But remember, Miss Ringwald, George Peppard in the A-Team would wear blackface for some episodes of that fantastic TV show, and he won a TV Times Award for his performance. So why isn't anybody complaining about that? Or Benny Hill doing blackface more than once on his comedy show. So it's such a ridiculous thing to say that, oh, we had these stereotypes, because you know why? I mean, even the actor who played Long Duck Dong, do you think he cared about it? No, it was a good acting role for him, and he was very funny in the film. You remember him because of his performance. I would probably say Long Duck Dong is probably a lot more memorable than Miss Ringwald was in that movie. It sounds like she's taken a bittersweet pill and she's like regretting what she's done. We've all done things in life, folks, that we do regret later on, and we wish we could turn back the time and just correct ourselves. But then what would be the point of learning if you didn't make these heinous mistakes in the first place? And I can tell you now, ladies and gentlemen, I've done some god-awful things back in my time as well. Things I can't even mention on this channel because I'm ashamed. I mean, I was a doofus back in the early part of the 90s, and you know, if I can go back, I'd like to apologize to people for my abhorrent behavior, but there's no such thing as a perfect person. If you're an actor or an actress or a singer, whatever, you're going to do things in life in your career path that, well, you can't look back and regret it. You've done it. You got paid thousands, maybe millions of dollars for your contribution to pop culture, to music, to films, to TV, to literature, any of those. But you can't sit down now on your magical throne and tell everybody, well, you know, to correct white history, we now have to make it a diverse for everyone to be included. I'm telling you now, if you brought up some Gen Zers to a Blockbuster video store and say, watch these movies, what do you think? Without any social engineering beforehand, okay, then you might see they might actually like these films. They might get a good laugh out of them, but everybody's offended. Everything is racist. Everything is homophobic, to quote Anita Sarkeesian, because that really went well for her, didn't it? And honestly, folks, at the end of the day, if you can't laugh at anything that you're not supposed to, then what the hell are we left with? I think there are aliens up there who are just cracking up at our primitive human-like behavior, because it seems we can't get a grip on reality, folks. But you know who can? Yours truly, because I'm sat here on my lovely stolen armchair from my previous office job, and I am loving every single minute of these videos. So if I were you, ladies and gentlemen, and if you were me, why don't you do what I do and watch the most perfect film ever made? Because honestly, this doesn't get talked about enough. And I know what some of you are telling me now. Apparently the makers behind Cobra Kai might be bringing this back like that show. So minus Jeffrey Jones, and if you know about that guy's diddling activities offline, well, yeah, I don't think we might be getting him back, but yeah, could be good to see the reunion of the gang. I can't wait. So on that one, ladies and gentlemen, if you were me, and if I were you, I'll catch you on the next video.
Very clever dinner. Appetizing food fit neatly into interesting round pie.
It's a quiche.
How do you spell?
Well, you don't spell it, son. You eat it.